So here's what we ended up taking out of Melek. We took out Pyromancer's Goggles. There were not enough red instant or sorceries in the deck for this card to be worth running at 5 mana. I'd rather put something in that's cheaper ramp. We took out Spell Burst. Locking somebody out of the game by countering their spells constantly is fine. But there's more efficient ways of doing it in other decks, so I don't think it's worth forcing it in this one. And I don't have a means of generating infinite colorless mana through like power artifact combos. It didn't make sense in the deck. Blade Thievery, awesome card in a more, really casual setting. Unfortunately, I don't have anybody who's gonna, let the game go long enough to get that card, to let that card be cast. Mizzix, I don't think there's any point in having him in here anymore. He'll die. I'll get 1 experience counter maybe. Doesn't make sense. Firemind's Foresight's coming out. I don't run the reset combo, the reset reiterate combo. So Firemind's Foresight just doesn't really have a place in the deck. It does provide nice value. It does tutor for High Tide, but I don't think that's enough to justify it, especially since unless I cast it at the end of my opponent's turn, I'm not going to be able to get that combo off. Enter the Infinite. I'm taking this out. I'm not sure yet if that's a good idea. Generally, it's probably a bad idea. I'm keeping Finale of Revelation in. So they're both 12 mana, technically, since the Finale would only be good if it's X is 10 or more. The benefit then is I get to untap 5 lands, and I still would have no maximum hand size for the rest of the game, so until the next turn. It doesn't dump my entire library out, so I think it's a little bit less restrictive, and giving me mana afterwards is probably better. So we'll see. We'll definitely see. Reality Spasm, I'm getting rid of it just because Turnabout's better. I like the Reality Spasm. I just don't think it's going to be strong enough in this deck. Unfortunately, if it was mono blue and if I was able to abuse it more, yeah. But I can't, so yeah, I don't know. Baral's coming out. I don't run a lot of counter spells. If I'm gonna, I have Electromancer in here for now, and we'll see how Electromancer goes. Docent, same deal. It's coming out. Maybe it would be good to keep it. I think if I was going to keep any, it would be the Young Pyromancer or Talrand instead, both of whom are also coming out. Metallurgic Summonings is coming out. I like it, but I think it just doesn't have a place in this deck. I think it's too slow. Fury Storm is going to come out. Again, I'm not going to be casting my commander that much, so I don't expect to retain much value from this card. Tezzeret's Gambit is coming out. We already explained why. And then, of course, we said Fork, Jory, and Gutter Snipe. They were all still coming out. I didn't change my mind on any of those cards. So, what is going in the deck? So we're going to do Sensei's Divining Top. That is a must. We're going to do a Candelabra tentatively. I'm not sure yet. I think it's good with High Tide, but there may not be enough in here. We're doing Portent. This is actually probably a less known card, so I'm going to go over it. It lets me look at the top 3 cards of my library, target player's library. Then I can shuffle the library, put those on top in any order, and then draw a card at the beginning of the next turn's upkeep. Top deck manipulation is going to be really important with Melek. We're going to do Ponder, pretty straightforward. Brainstorm, it does get me some stuff from my hand on top. I guess to put them on top in any order, so it goes well with Melek. Faithless Looting, I'm on the fence about, but I think the turn and burn on that's going to be worth it. Mana Drain, I think getting that mana off it's going to be fine, probably worth running. Desperate Ritual, it's a ritual. It's definitely the weakest one, so this may end up coming out. Spell Skype, because we have to protect Melek, definitely. Ideas Unbound. Draw 3 and then discard 3 at the end of the turn, so it really it really allows you to maximize that turn's potential. Same reason I run Meditate in the deck. You know, it's scroll rack, top deck manipulation is important. Saving cards from discard, you know, wheels and stuff is important. Yeah, the reason I run Meditate and Ideas Unbound for the both, you know, both for the same reasons. Seething Song, pretty straightforward. It's a good ritual. Back to Basics, I'm on the fence about. I don't know if it's going to end up hurting me more than it ends up hurting my opponents. It's extremely unlikely that it's going to hurt me since I run very few basics, but the card itself is not copyable with Melek, so it may not generate enough value. Dream Cache, realistically, I would most likely end up putting Soothsaying in the deck instead of Dream Cache. I just have to remember where I put my Soothsaying, because that is a better card in this deck. Dream Cache is okay for now. Wheel of Fortune, I think that one's pretty straightforward. Blood Moon, again, it kind of, you know, it doesn't follow the theme of the deck, so I just don't know how I feel about it yet. We'll see. And then we're going to do Jace, mostly because he can do the brainstorms as needed with his 0. So I think he'll be worth having in the deck. You know, even if he, you know, he bounces stuff, worst case. So I think he's fine. Right now, looking at this deck, I can say without question that the biggest areas of struggle are going to be dealing with creatures early on. If somebody can get out, you know, any aggro decks, anybody with early game threats, they're probably going to just walk all over this deck. So, you know, that of course is the compelling argument for keeping Young Pyromancer, Talrand, and so on in the deck. So, you know, I definitely recognize that, and I'm just going to have to see how it plays out before deciding whether or not to put them back in. I'll go over the rest of the deck really quickly, just, you know, to help contextualize some of the other cards. I do need to get Dramatic Reversal. Unfortunately, I only have it in Teferi, and I just don't feel like, I guess I'll have to buy some, whatever. High Tide, of course, mostly because I like the card, not so much because it's good in a blue-red deck, but it is good. Soul Ring, you know, we need some ramp. I don't have enough ramp in the deck. I'm still trying to figure out which artifacts I want to put in, like which of the Izzet rocks and stuff. Preordain, you know, we need the we need those little draw spells, cantrips, and all that. Mystic Remora, straightforward card. It's you know, amazing card draw in blue. We got the Izzet Signet. So I may end up replacing this with some of the, well, not replacing it, but I probably should add at least the Talisman, if nothing else. The blue-red Talisman. Snap, bounce, untap 2 lands. Also an instant, so I can put it on the Isochron Scepter, so that's nice. Scepter is pretty standard, I think. Narset's Reversal. I'm not sure on this card yet. I think I'm going to keep it in here. I don't quite know what I'm going to be copying with it, but I'm sure I'll manage to squeeze some value out of it. So we'll leave it in there for now. I mean, you put it on the Scepter, and that's pretty nice. Arcane Denial, you know, it's a counter spell. Is it the best one? No, but it's in there. I probably should put Remand in the deck. Merchant Scrolls in there, of course. Remand is probably good to have in the deck, and Memory Lapse to counter spell and put it on top of the deck is also really nice. Because you can get stuff from my hand on top of my deck for Melek. And then Counterspell. You know, classic Counterspell. At CMC3, we've got Reiterate. I'm still on the fence about this. I can only see myself copying maybe Turnabout or Mana Geyser a bunch of times to make infinite mana. Other than that, this card seems a little narrow. Frantic Search, draw 2, discard 2, and then untap up to 3 lands. This card's awesome to be copying with Melek, or just, you know, it's just a solid card in general, even if you don't copy it. I do have Disallow. I think you have to be able to counter spells or activated abilities, and of course triggered abilities, but especially the activated abilities, I feel like are pretty nasty in EDH. So Capsize, this is definitely kind of an, I don't want to say outdated card, but it's pretty outdated. I used to run this in my control decks way back in EDH, you know, the earlier days. I just, I haven't taken it out yet. I think it's worth having. Who knows? Bonus round, card's nuts. This card should not be 3 mana. Call to mind to, you know, recur things. I don't have like Charmbreaker Devils in here, or like Nuclevi, or well, I guess Nuclevi got outclassed also by a bunch of stuff. I mean, even at the time, Izzet Paragon was probably better. Force of Negation, I think it's fine. Honestly, it's most of the time you're just gonna hard cast it for 3 and counter a spell and exile it, so you can't complain that much about it. Meditate, skip your next turn, but then draw 4 cards. Especially off of like Melek off the top of the library, it's 3 mana, draw 8 cards. Skipping your next turns, whatever. I can live with that. You're typically going to use it to either to go off, or, you know, during the course of going off, just get some more gas. Unwind, counter a non-creature spell, untap up to 3 lands. We like it because it untaps lands. Counterflux, it's an uncounterable counterspell. I'd like to run at least a couple in EDH, because people. So this one's really good at it. Spellseeker, I think, is fine for now. The CMC 2 or less is really what makes this card good. If it was CMC 2, it would still be good, but not quite as good. But, you know, as it currently stands, it allows me to go get High Tide, which is like my favorite thing to do, even though it's half the time not even that good. But yeah, so Spellseeker. I'm also running Windfall. So, you know, having a few wheels in the deck is probably unnecessary. I run 4, I think. I run Windfall, Wheel of Fortune, Memory Jar, and then Time Reversal. Oh, and then Time Spiral as well. So I'm running 5. And if you count the finale, which it kind of is, not quite actually. Yeah, so I run like 5. 5 is not terrible, but 4 is probably better. So at CMC 4, we have another uncounterable counterspell. Mystic Retrieval. This card's, I don't want to know. I don't know if it's underrated. I certainly don't see a lot of people playing it, so I, you know, tend to draw the conclusion that it is underrated. Regardless, it's an awesome card. Past in Flames is, you know, it's one of the best cards in the deck. It helps you with Storm. It helps you go off in general. You know, I only run 1 Storm card in here. I need to add a couple more, I guess, technically. But the deck is like, it's not super Storm heavy. It's really just about trying to generate value. Get maybe like a, you know, like a High Tide into a lot of mana, and then dome someone with like a Comet Storm or something. I'm not running anything infinite, and I certainly am happy about that. Pull from the Deep. Never mind, not making any jokes. It's a good card, so it provides you a lot of value. It sucks that it gets exiled, but I think that's kind of necessary. Rewind, it counters a spell, untaps up to 4 lands. Awesome card. I'm on the fence about this. Primal Amulet, I think it's awesome. It does reduce the mana cost of instants and sorceries that I cast. And since I cut Baral, I think it's important. And it flips into a land, I believe, that adds mana of any color, and then when you tap it for mana in a spell, it copies that spell. So I think it has nice, you know, pretty good value. So Turnabout, it's good. It's definitely better in like mono blue High Tide decks, but I think it's good enough here. You can just untap all your lands. In a pinch, you can tap your opponent's creatures down to not die. So I think it's relevant. Sentinel Tower. Again, it's, you know, kind of a Storm-ish card. I would say that maybe the Sphinx Bone Wand is probably better, but excuse me. I think the Sphinx's Bone Wand is better technically, but at 7 mana, it's less accessible. So if you can get this thing out turn 4, it's not unreasonable to get, you know, 20-30 damage on your next turn versus waiting till turn, you know, assuming ramp didn't go well that game, you know, turn 7. It's a long time to wait for something. So we're at CMC 5 now. Time reversal. It's one of the wheels, basically. I like it. I think it's worth running in the deck. We've got Gilded Lotus. It's definitely a more expensive ramp card, so it barely even qualifies as ramp in this deck. It does not help you out early game, and it really only helps you fix that triple mana like mid to late game. Evacuation. Return all creatures to their owner's hands. Instant speed. You need this to not die. Very straightforward card. Temporal Fissure. It's the only storm card I'm actually running right now. It's a lot worse in multiplayer. So I'm probably going to grab like Ignite Memories and throw that in here. I used to run Mind's Desire, but I don't know. I got kind of bored of the card. It just felt boring. I mean, obviously bouncing everyone's lands to their hand is also boring. So, you know, yeah, that's pretty hypocritical of me. Force of Will. It's a blue deck, so you got to run it. Mana Geyser. I don't want to say I'm on the fence about this card, but I think the better statement would be that I'm extremely aware of the arguments against running this card. It costs 5 mana. It's a sorcery, and it only adds red. So, yeah, this card, I could probably cut it without any detrimental effect, but I like it. Next, we have one of the most broken blue-red cards I've ever seen. Love it. Gilded Lotus helps a lot with this, and that's kind of one reason I've kept myself from cutting it. I don't want to run Niv Mizzet as the commander, at least for now. I don't feel like throwing in Curiosity or any of the infinite combos that go with Niv Mizzet, so for now, I'm just going to suffer through EDH games and probably lose because I don't have infinite combos in the deck. Invoke the Firemind, awesome card. It's not quite as good, I'd say, as some of its counterparts. If you would consider Epic Experiment a counterpart anyway. I don't know, maybe they're not really counterparts. Epic Experiment's really good. So it's not as good in this deck because it's good in this deck because I don't have a ton of counter spells, but it's not as good in this deck because I'm not running the large Haymaker spells. So it's you know, it's gonna draw me into some Faithless Lootings and crap like that rather than you know, Enter the Infinites and I don't even know what else, like just big spells that kill people. Blue Sun Zenith. You know, you use this to kill people, and obviously lots of value for yourself. It shuffles itself back in when you cast it, so it's pretty cool. So this card is like, this is actually probably the best blue-red card. Sorry, Niv Mizzet, but this card's absolutely insane. I don't know how many times I've said this, but this card is just an absolute monster. I love it. It's really fun to play with. It's also kind of the reason I don't have a ton of Storm cards in the deck, as in I only have one. Because this card gives your spells Storm, and that's just, it's just nuts. It's absolutely nuts. It's fun, but it's ridiculous. Cyclonic Rift, you know, you got to stay alive, and that's really one of the only ways to do it. Finale Revelation, again, I picked this over the Enter the Infinite, so hopefully that was the right decision. Then we've got Time Spiral, and this one I think is non-negotiable. I would never cut this card from this deck, and I honestly probably would never cut it from any blue deck that I own. So, you know, that's that one. And then, of course, I forgot a few cards that were sitting off to the side, so let's go through them really quickly. Still in that X or 6 or higher CMC, we've got Comet Storm. This is pretty much one of the ways to kill people. It's really good, but it definitely has had some better iterations printed. Memory Jar, I was on the fence about. I think it's the kind of thing where you kind of have to treat it as like a soft combo. So when you start to combo off and when you start to really have fun, just remember you can crack this to get some extra gas that turn. That's really all it's for. And then I kept the Electromancer in for now. I think I could straight swap him for a young Pyromancer and probably be okay, but he's here for now. So like I said, I'm not running Proteus Staff either. I just don't like the consistency that it provides. I personally don't think it's fun, but is it good? Yeah, it's good. Absolutely. I would recommend running that if you can, and I would also recommend running the Fire Mines Foresight combo. And I mean, of course, you could throw like Splinter Twin combo into the deck, and Dramatic Reversal combo into the deck. So you got plenty of combos in blue red if that's what you want to do. Otherwise, you can hang out with me and lose all day to infinite combos. And here we've got Melek, of course, my commander. I think he's absolutely hilarious. In the sense that like you typically just cast him, let him die, and then sit there tilted the rest of the game. But still, for when he does survive, it's awesome. Lots of fun. I was thinking about putting some protection in here for him. I probably will still put something in here, even just if it's like a Lightning Greaves. We'll see. But yeah, so that's like the changes that I made to this deck. I'll test play it, find out how it goes. And of course, that is now my Melek deck instead of my Mizzix deck. And yeah, I don't know. Not much else to say there. Have a good one.